And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Origins First Builders. Now, I don't think it's a great name for a game because there's a lot of games about Origins, but apparently in this game, there's like a sci-fi theme where these aliens are coming down and giving you ideas on how to build your town, and you're getting information from them and going and trading with them. Just as a heads up, that theme disappears about 2 seconds into the game. But it is kind of a cool theme. It's a really cool cover. I like how Origins looks. Now, Origins is from Board and Dice, and because of that, this game is going to feel like it's one of their other games that has a lot of the same ideas. This is a dice placement game where the way you place your dice on the board is going to give you different actions. So let me get showing that to you, and then we'll come back with my opinion. So I'm going to go over some of the basics of the game, not every single detail, but this is one of the player boards that you might have, and these are dice. You're going to draft some dice at the beginning of the game, but think of these dice as different people that you have, free men. They each have a value, and then you have your Archon here, who is basically stronger. He's like an infinite number, but each turn when you pass, you're going to take a bunch of actions. When you pass, your dice are going to come back to you and they're going to go up a value. When they go up to value 6, they essentially retire and you're going to place them here. Now this is going to give you more points at the end of the game based on the number of different color dice. Each one has to be a different color, but also your Archon becomes the color of the ones that you have here. Each player is limited to 2 dice at the beginning of the game, but one of the actions that you can take is you can pay more food to bring these up here, these bases that show that you have more dice, which allows you, when you take an action that gets you more dice, to put it in there. Players are also going to start with a palace, and this palace has towers. You'll be able to increase these towers as the game goes by, and an agora here, which kind of gives you a special action. As the game goes by, you're going to be adding different things to your board. So let's say, for example, I add these, and later on I'll put this here and this here. And one of the actions that you can take is you can take one of your people here and stick it there. I wouldn't probably take that one. I might take this one and put it here. At the end of the game, you're going to get points based on your towers and your dice that you have out here. And whenever you put a die out here, you also get to activate the abilities of the colors that match it. This one matches a red. Also, when you do this, when you finish a district here, there will be some cards next to the board, and if you match that card, in this case you can see I have the red, blue, red, anything here, you're going to get the points on the card. One person, the first person to do this, gets 15 points, everyone after that gets 8, and also the first person to do this is going to get a couple gold coins. In this game, gold coins are resources. So those are some of the actions you can take, where you'll be completing a city district, you'll be paying food to do this, and like I said, passing to get your stuff back. But the main action that players are going to take is taking one of these dice or their Archon and going to the board. When you place your dice on the board, you're going to be placing them at 5 different encounter sites. These are randomized at the beginning of the game. These are put on the board here. And each of these encounter sites has a die number at it. So when it's your turn, you can place a die at any of these encounter sites. The color doesn't matter for placement purposes. The number just has to be equal to or higher than this. If it isn't, you need to pay scrolls that are different. The benefit of your Archon is you never have to worry about that. Your Archon can go anywhere. When you put it somewhere, you're going to rotate it 1, which means it will rotate back from 6 to 1. And then you're going to take one of the 2 actions at the top. So each of these sites has 2 different actions. Now, if you place your site at somewhere and you are the color, so if I place the orange die here, I also get to take that action. And this particular action gives me one of these white dice, which I can use this turn and put out somewhere on the board. So the various actions are going to be different. They're going to allow you to build buildings. They're going to let you move along the conquest track. They'll give you resources, stone, grain, scrolls, resource of your choice, and money, etc. Or get more dice. So there are various things that you're going to be able to do once you've placed these dice out. A lot of that has to do with down here. Down here, you're moving along this track, and basically, whenever you do a military action against other players, if you are farther ahead than someone else's token on the track, then you're going to get the resources that are at the different spot you're at. Also, as you pass these circles here, you get these tokens, which you'll be able to spend to take multiple turns in a row. Over here, you have the different buildings. There are different piles. This is how the game starts. But whenever you buy a building, and buildings are going to have a certain cost on them, so this one costs a stone, and when you build a building, it's going to give you an ability that you can take right away or activate later on with a die. When you take this, it will also cost a certain number of scrolls. Then these move up, and then you'll add the top one from whatever color is missing. So I'd add a red one down here. So there's always one of every color building available. Just like up here, there's going to be dice, and you'll take one, costing the scrolls, and then you'll take a die of the type that you just took, roll it, and then you arrange these in order from lowest to highest. So that's what these three things are. As the game goes by, you're also going to be able to take actions that move you up these tracks, and at the end of the game, you're going to get the sum total of your 2 lowest tracks. Also, as you move up on these tracks, you're going to get this card here, which will give you a special ability that says when you pass, gain a basic resource for each space you must move back on the military track. So the military track, whenever you pass, you kind of have to go back to pass the last one of these that you've gotten, and you get some extra resources. So these cards, you'll be fighting over them and taking them away from each other as you move up these tracks. And then a final action that you can do is you can take some of these towers here. These are going to cost you gold equal times the number of colors that you have. The number of towers that are available are actually determined at the beginning of the game based on these cards that you draw. Remember, you're trying to match these different arrays here to get victory points, but they also show you what towers to put out. And so you'll take these towers and you're going to place them on your palace. The game ends in various different ways. If you move up on one of those zodiac trays, if all the district cards have been scored, or we run out of a die of different color, and then there's final scoring. And so you get some points for leftover gold. You get the 2 tracks that you're lowest on, like I mentioned. And you're also going to get points for your dice that you have out here. So as you put dice out here, times the height of the tower that you have. And then you're going to add all these scores together, and whoever has the most points is the winner of the game. There's a lot of bright colors and components in the game. One of the things I really like are these plastic alien devices that you stick in here and they move around. My only complaint is it's a little difficult to see the pips that are in these. I'm going to actually, I think, paint the pips so that you can see them more easily, because it's just not that convenient. Other than that, though, the symbology I didn't find to be that confusing. There's a lot of little text on the different buildings here, but everything's kind of easy to set out. The dice themselves are okay. They're not great dice, but they work well for the purpose of this game. And I do like that your player board here has the cutouts to put everything in, and putting your dice in one of these and moving it around is satisfying. It's a nice way to know whose dice is what. There is one major problem I have with this game, and it's something that Board and Dice has been doing recently. It's these resources are terrible, because they all have the same background. I'm not sure who thought that was a good idea. Why not put yellow in the background of the wheat, and gray in the background of the stone, and white in the background of these, or whatever? Because at a glance, they're hard to see. Also, you use resources like crazy in this game, and there's barely enough. If you play a 4-player game, you constantly have to make change. I don't even know why these 5s are here, because you barely save up that much to do anything with. You're spending resources as often as you can in this game. As soon as you get enough, you're going to use them. And I think they could have added more 1 resources. So there's not enough of the resources, and they're also just not great resources. I was a little disappointed by those. I might upgrade the ones in my game. So components, again, I think most of it's good, but there was a few problems. Now, I said at the very beginning that this game feels like their other games, and there really is kind of a feel and a theme to the games that Board and Dice do. I mean, literally, there's a board you place dice on, you're moving up tracks. I'm surprised this game isn't called Torigins, so that it's part of the T line. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing at all, but it does mean I feel like if you like some of their games, you'll like this one. Although, again, there's going to be various things. I don't think this aspires to the greatness of other games in the series. Like Tekkenu that came out last year, I think is a stronger, bigger game than this one is. Although there are some aspects of this one that I like a lot. There's a couple things that are really cool. First of all, placing the dice out there. Now, You could get to a point where there's nowhere to place your dice, but I haven't seen that happen. But see, at the beginning of the game, you're going, well, I'm going to place this orange die in the orange spot. I'm going to place the blue die in the blue spot, because not only do I get that action, but I get a bonus action. And of course, every bonus action is a good thing. But, as the game goes by, the orange die, the dial might be set there at 4, and my orange die is a 2. And I don't have enough scrolls, because scrolls are used for a lot of things. They're used for putting dice in spots that you normally can't put them. They're used to get more dice. They're used to get some of the buildings in this game. And so there's this kind of struggle as you're like, what do I do? And I guess I'll just put this orange die over here on the purple area and take just one action, but it's better than nothing. So that's a good concept, and I also like that everyone has an Archon, because an Archon means I can take whatever action I want once per round. That's a big deal. It's something we've seen in viticulture. The idea of that, I think, just works well, but even better than that is as you retire dice, when they get to 6, not only are they worth points at the end of the game, your Archon becomes 1 color, then 2, then maybe 3. I haven't seen it get to 4 and 5 yet, or I think I've seen it get to 4, but that was at the end of the game. But I mean, it's still cool. You put your Archon out, you're like, I'm always going to get to take 2 actions with this one because I know I can go to those spots. And since the colors switch from game to game, there's going to be some differential there, and I think that works really well. So I like that aspect a lot. I like the dice. I like moving them around. I like getting new dice. I like the idea in this game, instead of feeding your workers, you're basically paying food to add more out there, which is expensive, but you can have more dice, which gives you more actions. But of course, getting the ability to have more dice means you still need to take actions to get those dice, and every time you pass, your dice all go up by 1, so you can take the higher value dice, which are easier to put out, but they are going to retire soon, which gives you points, but also means you're no longer using that dice. Also, when you have dice, you want to build the city. So I want to talk about that briefly. As you build the districts, this feels like almost, it feels like it is a focal part of the game, and yet it's really easy to kind of ignore it. And in fact, the first game of this I played, everyone kind of did ignore it because everyone got caught up in doing all these different things. And you're like, oh, I guess I better build up these districts because it's a lot of points. You match the colors that come out on the cards. You're going to get extra points for having dice there, and you get to activate the buildings. It's really powerful, and it's something that I think should be stressed to new players, that you should not ignore your city. The military track, which is a typical track in a game that goes in a circle, is an interesting concept, and it's definitely the most interaction between players. If you ignore military, someone else will constantly be going, thank you, thank you, thank you, as they're going to get more stuff thanks to you being behind them. So that's kind of an interesting aspect. And you can even push the military track as a way to maybe get some points. And in one game, I went very hard on the military track, did not win, but came in a pretty appreciative 2nd place. But there's a few small problems I have with the game. I don't think the Zodiac cards are as interesting to me. They're okay powers, and since they're all different constellations of stars, when you glance at them, you don't know what it does. It's just text that's written on the cards, no symbology or anything. So it's like, what does that card do again? There's a bit of that, although it does add variety from game to game. The different buildings provide all kinds of cool combos that you can do, but those different cards that you put out at the beginning, so you have a whole deck here of cards, and this deck's important for a couple reasons. One, it shows you what towers to put out at the beginning of the game, but it also shows you different patterns that you're trying to make. I played one game where all the patterns were very similar, and so someone was able to make these patterns, and you can only score one pattern whenever you put a die out, but if you do it right, you can build a whole bunch of patterns quickly, and that wasn't as interesting as the game as it was when the patterns were at least somewhat different. And I almost think that if they all just showed the same color buildings, I would say let's reshuffle a couple back in so that a few show some different colors of buildings. Now again, this may be a design thing that I'm not understanding. I just found that the more colors that were available on these, the more interesting the game itself was. So yes, I recommend it, especially to people who like the games from Board and Dice, because this definitely is in that wheelhouse. The game slows down a little bit near the end. It was a little sloggy at the end, and I think part of that is in a 4-player game, just a little bit slow, as there's a whole lot of different actions that you can take. And I think if you fall behind in this game, it's a little difficult. There's no strong catch-up mechanism. And of course, I don't like the resource pieces, I think that they're pretty bad, actually. But other than that, the idea, it really offers you a lot of different options. How you're going to build your city, maybe building the towers up as high as you can, because you want to buy them, but they're very expensive. Gold is a very precious resource, especially since it's wild. And building the towers higher is cool. It can score you points, but then you also have to, you can have a high tower, but not get the dice out there. So there's just a lot going on. It's definitely worth checking out. So that is Origin's First Builders. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time. Dice Tower Judgment approved.